Today's episode of The Sit Down with Scott Dion Brown is brought to you by Jennifer C. at HomeLifeCultureLink.com, Nino Simeka at MortgageGodfather.ca, and Jewelry Forever at JewelryForever.ca. Enjoy the show.
Broadcasting live from Glenmore Record Studios in Toronto, this is The Sit Down with Scott Dion Brown, your Sunday morning talk show with interesting guests, live musical performances, and the most fun you can fit in your coffee cup. Hosted by Scott Dion Brown and Regine Alaina, this is The Sit Down with Scott Dion Brown.
What a beautiful morning.
Latte, ladies and gentlemen. Look at this mountain of milk foam. How can one gaze upon such a peak and not feel joy? Hello, Zack Attack. Oh, that's great, Zack Attack. I'm so glad to hear that. Wonderful. I'm glad you're feeling better. And welcome to the show, Zack. Welcome. You're just in time for the very beginning of The Sit Down with Scott Dion Brown. And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 119. I think it's 119. We'll find out. You already know. You watching this, you can look at the title. I don't see the title. But welcome to today's episode of The Sit Down with Scott Dion Brown. And I'm your host, as always, the one, the only Scott Dion Brown. And I'm joined by the greatest co-host in the entire galaxy. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only
Regine Alaina. Happy Sunday, everyone, and good afternoon, Scott. This is weird. It's not good morning.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I almost forgot. Yeah, that's right. I kind of forgot. That's right. We're starting at a slightly later time today. We don't usually start at this time, but that's because time zones. And our guest today is actually on the West Coast of the United States. And so we decided to kick things a little bit more forward because it's way earlier over there than it is here. And you know, the thing is, Regine...
3 hours?
Yeah, 3 hours, yeah. But the thing is, I mean, I actually kind of liked it because I didn't have to, like, I woke up naturally. Like, usually an alarm has to wake me up to get ready for the 11 o'clock show, and this was just kind of, I felt so loose and just...
Yeah, but you normally wake up at 10:50.
Yeah, well, a little earlier than that. But yeah, that's the thing. I had a whole hour and a half extra to prep it. I don't know. Maybe we should. No, I don't know. No, we always start at 11. But I'm used to the routine, but I did kind of like this little I don't know, what do we call it? Extra sleep. Sure. How was your week, Regine?
It was good. It was slightly less eventful than the previous week, but I went for a nice hike yesterday, and I am exhausted. Now that the snow is here, and it's just like climbing a hill covered in snow, that adds a lot more than just a regular hike on a regular day.
Yeah, hiking in the snow, it makes you tired. I find when it's cold and when there's snow on the ground, because it makes every step a little bit more, I guess because you have to, like, every step you're kind of making sure you don't slip a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I feel like you're working a little harder every step. So you really are exhausted afterwards, even after not.
It's more impactful when there's snow.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Zach says, Regine, hi. Hi, Regine. How are you? Zach asks how you are, Regine.
I'm good. I saw that you were in the hospital. I hope you're okay.
Yeah, he was actually the other night when we were streaming, he was playing video games with us, but he was in the hospital. Apparently they let him bring his PS4, which was cool. So he was in the stream with us. Yeah, it was cool.
Wow.
But I'm glad he's out. I'm glad you're feeling better there, Zach. And hello, welcome to the show. Hit that like button, everybody, if you haven't yet.
How was your week?
My week was fun. What did I do? Editing, lots of editing. Movie's not done yet.
Did you finish your film?
No, that's what I was just getting to. But no, not yet. But it's very close. It's now down to 18 minutes and 30 seconds. But it's
You're
nice.
almost there.
It's flowing. Yeah, you know what it is? It feels like I'm like a archaeologist,
Okay.
and I'm unearthing a good movie underneath all of this extra stuff that doesn't need to be there. You know what I mean? I'm like hacking away at pieces. I'm like, oh, this isn't part of it. This isn't part of it. It's like that, and it's coming.
Find
though.
any
It's
good
coming
rock?
along. We'll find out. I think there's a diamond down there somewhere. Like it's interesting because it's like I get to the end of it, and I'm like, yeah, that's good. It's too long, but it's good. It's too and I'm trying to get rid of those. There's these moments where I'm glad we got here, but I feel like I wish we were here sooner. You know what I mean? And so I have to make those decisions. Anyways, we should probably bring in our guest, Regine. What do you think?
Yes, I think she has a lot to say about film.
Yes, that's true, actually. Our guest today, ladies and gentlemen, is a professional writer, a professional screenwriter for film and television, award-winning as well. And she's currently based in Los Angeles, California. So even though we started a little later, it's still quite early over there. It's
Good morning.
Yeah, exactly. It's early. So ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm sit-down welcome to Corinne Stikeman. Hello.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. It is early here, but it is bright and sunny.
I'm so
That's good.
jealous.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's yesterday it was snowing. Was it yesterday that it was snowing so much? No, maybe 2 days ago.
It was
like
snowing all week, like non-stop.
Wow.
big,
snowing.
thick snowflakes. Yeah.
I miss that, you guys. You think it's fun in the sun, but it gets a little old, you know?
That's fair.
Every
Yeah, I've
day's
always-
the same out here.
Yeah, I've always thought that. I've always thought like we appreciate it more because we know like what it's like when it's not there. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
So
I feel like the thing I miss the most about Toronto is that like first warm-ish day in April when everybody just puts on flip-flops and their sundresses and it's still freezing, but
Yeah.
the sun's out and the patios are open and everybody just goes for it. Yeah, you don't get that here because it's just, oh, I can go tomorrow. I can go the day after that.
It's patio
It's like-
season all
It's
year
the time.
long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all patio
But-
all the time.
that's the thing. It's a
So-
very Canadian thing where it's almost like everybody decides that they can, by sheer will, if they all put on shorts and go sit outside, it'll
Yeah.
almost force patio season to start. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the snow will just
Yeah.
melt, and in a weird way, it feels like it works. It feels like it works.
It does because there's that moment also when the sun goes away and it gets legitimately cold and you're like, all right, this is over, but we did it. And now I can
Yeah.
sleep really well and it's going to be winter again tomorrow.
Yeah.
But we know it's coming. So, yeah. No, every day here, it's just, you kind of crave those rainy days, which we really haven't had a lot of this year. It was a little windy last night, so that was exciting. And that's about it. That's
Oh,
Los
wow.
Angeles.
I mean, I know just a couple hours away from you in Las Vegas, it snowed a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's insane.
Yeah.
Does that
it's,
ever? Isn't that a desert? Isn't it the desert in Vegas?
It does get very cold at night out there. There have been a few snowstorms. I remember there was 10 years ago, there was a massive snowstorm that grounded a bunch of flights.
Wow.
But it is weird to think of the desert and snowing. There was a point, I think, here where it was flurrying in Malibu when it got really cold a few weeks ago. And that's always
Wow.
a big, I don't know if that's global warming or if that's just being in a
think-
desert landscape.
I feel like it could be global warming because I know in Greece it was snowing as well.
Oh boy.
And that
Yeah.
never happens.
Oh,
So
boy.
yeah.
Well, they always say that the climate change will cause bigger swings, right? More extreme weather, so
Yeah.
shifts
Yeah.
around and stuff like that. But
Yeah, and what's happening in Texas, I think that's a good,
Yeah.
that's kind of where we're all headed. So that's terrifying and,
Mhm.
yeah, it's
you know.
crazy what's happening there. I mean, in Toronto, you get that type of. I remember we had the polar vortex in Ontario a few years ago, but I think because we've got more of the infrastructure in place because we expect that weather,
Yeah.
right? It was just easier. You know, people know, for example, like we've had situations where your pipes can freeze, but most people are aware, like you got to switch on the water or leave it running or all that. Switch off the water rather. But if you live somewhere where that's never an issue, I mean, it's just,
Yeah, even driving,
crazy.
if you think about driving in the snow for the very first time with no snow tires and like not, the city isn't equipped with the snow plows that Toronto has, like that's, I'm not even confident that I could drive in the snow, and that's how I learned. It's just been so long since I've really like done it, and I know all the like theories and stuff, so it's got to be scary.
I think it would come back to you. Because
hope so.
I think it's like riding a bike. I actually love driving in the snow. I always feel like it's like
you do.
It's like driving a boat. I always love because it's not precise, so you just gotta sort of enjoy the glide.
It's like driving a boat. It's terrifying.
Drive around. Yeah, I mean you can't take
driving
you can't
in a
take
car
turns too
with
hard.
him. It's only 5 minutes, but
I mean, I can imagine. Right now, it's like if it's raining and it's dark, I'm like, we should just go tomorrow. Let's just stay in tonight. It's not worth it. It's too scary out there.
Well, the other thing that's definitely changed now is because there's like not really anywhere to go, and you're encouraged to stay home. So I do find now it's like I'm probably even out of practice now because I've hardly driven at all. Like the car just sits there pretty much all the time. I go a 2-minute drive to get groceries, the odd little appointment here and there, and other than that, there's almost nowhere. So that's another addition to the equation of what we're going
fair.
through.
Yeah. Yep.
But
so we didn't have
crazy.
you on the show to talk about snow.
Yes, that's true. That's a good point. Yeah, we should ask about. Oh, wait, hang on, Zach. The more snow on the ground, the more weight you're putting on your feet. That's why you're retired, probably. Oh, he was talking about from earlier when you were talking about walking. That's a good point there, Zach Attack. And hey, Cookie Kid Oreos. Yes, this is our weekly podcast talk show. We have a different guest on every week, and today we're talking to screenwriter Corinne Stikeman. And yes, I want to find out some things about you as a screenwriter. So yeah, you're a Toronto girl, originally from Toronto.
Yep.
But now you're out in sunny California as a screenwriter. So tell us a little bit about your journey of how you got there.
Oh boy. It was not really it's so funny because I've been here for 12 years now, but it really wasn't the plan. I, went to University of Toronto and graduated thinking I wanted to do something in publishing. I loved writing fiction. So I thought, I'll be a publisher, I'll write books. The dream was to move to New York and try and make that work. And I got a great internship in New York, and I moved there for, half a year. And publishing was just really boring, and it felt so archaic and very slow paced. And also I was like, why am I on this side of things when I want to be on the other side, the writing side? And then, I had this dream of, moving to New York and throwing my hat in the air and being like, welcome to the city. This is now your home. And like the city just was like, shrug, you're here. Great. It just didn't really open up for me. I had a hard time trying to even find a job past the internship. So I moved back to Toronto, and I was just like, I don't know what to do. I always loved writing. I always loved television. I always loved movies. And I just, on a whim, my sister was like, one of my friends lives in LA. He's working at this talent agency. He wants to be a writer. You should just call him and see what he's doing. And I talked to him, and he was like, you should move out here just for a year. And, I work at this agency. And if you're really interested in writing, like this could be something that could be great for you. And I really need a roommate. So if you could come out here sooner than later. And I was 23, and I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I just like flew out here, and I interviewed to work at this agency, and they were like, yeah, sure, whatever, you want to come work here, that's great. Wow. And I just kind of was like, all right, let's do it, in a way that you just wouldn't do in your mid-30s, but you're 23 and you got a dream. And I was just like, I knew I wanted to live in the US, and I wanted to be in the entertainment industry. And I was like, well, I either do this now or I don't do it. I thought it would be a year and I would hate it, and that I would come home and be like, all right, well, what's the next thing? But unlike New York, friends, people, the industry, it all kind of just started working. And I just kind of kept staying on, and I worked at this agency, and the agency connected me to my first writing job, which was at an assistant level, and I rose through the ranks on the TV show and then graduated to writer, and just been going ever since. So it was just kind of a happy, the thing we always say out here is that it's half luck, mostly luck, timing, and a little bit of talent is what gets you started. So yeah, that's kind of the big story, but it's of course more complicated when you get down to the little details of how things happen. But yeah, it's weird because I remember coming out here in 2006. I was on my way back from Australia, where my sister was studying, and I had an overnight in LA, and I had one night here. I'd never come to the city before, had no intention of ever coming back. And I was standing at the corner of Fairfax and Santa Monica, just like looking around the city, trying to figure out, like, I have no idea where I was. I was like, this is a cool city, but like, yeah, I'm probably never gonna come back here. And now I live half a block from that intersection that I was standing at with my boyfriend and my cat. So you just don't know, guys. Life is crazy.
You didn't know then you were looking at like the first act of like your next chapter, but you didn't know at that moment.
Yeah, I think about that all the time because it's just, I had no idea.
It's like, what are the chances?
Yeah, and my boyfriend was here at that time, my to-be boyfriend, with the cats that I would come to live with. They were all here waiting, and I was just like, see ya.
That's weird. That's weird to think about. You were standing a half a block away.
Yeah, I know.
Didn't even know. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like what kind of transition was that? Because if you originally wanted to write books, how was that transition going from writing, I guess, books to screenplays? Because I think format-wise they're quite different. So how did you find making that transition?
Yeah, it was tough. I feel like writing, especially, it's something that you start off being like okay at. And you really got to just do it every day and get better and better and better and better. So I was at this place where my fiction writing, my short stories were getting really tight, really concise. I knew exactly what my voice was. I knew exactly how to write them. And then I started switching over to writing television. And it was all the rules, you throw them out the window, because you can only convey story, emotion, everything in action and dialogue, and that's it. It was really, really hard. And it was that frustrating feeling like, I know I can do this, but it's not coming out on the page. Because I know I can do it in these short stories. And if I learn how to hone whatever I'm doing there and put it into this medium, it's going to be exactly what I want it to be. But there was like a good couple of years where I was just turning out, mediocre, probably horrible things. But the thing that I did that's so helpful, and I think it's kind of something that anybody should do if they ever want to work in television as a writer, is I dissected my favorite television shows and I would watch them. And if you just search online, you can get PDFs of kind of any script. And I would just kind of dissect them and say, okay, here's the first act. Here's this story. Here's how all the beats kind of lay out. Here's what they're doing on page whatever. This important thing happens. So that's kind of your benchmark for story turns and stuff. And I started writing episodes of TV. Like I wrote an episode of The Office, and I wrote an episode of Bob's Burgers, and I wrote just for myself. It wasn't like there was also a period of time when, as a writer out here, people would, as a sample, would want to see your version of an existing TV show. That's not really in fashion anymore, but it was those are called specs. So I just kept doing that and learning the format, and eventually, because part of the job is also keying into the tone, into the voice of the show that you want to work on. So learning how to do that and put yourself aside, and kind of, channel yourself into what's already there. That's a skill too. So that was really helpful, but it took a couple years, especially because there's you can take a class, but really I just kind of learned on my feet and by reading and talking to people.
Cool. I feel like it would be hard to, how do I word this properly? So for example, when I made my first short film, right, I wrote the script for it. But it wasn't until the original version, we wrote it, and I was doing everything myself. So I wrote it, and then we filmed it. And we filmed everything I wrote. And it wasn't until I was editing it that I realized that there was huge chunks of this that was just boring and didn't need to be there. But I almost didn't. I wasn't able to see it until I almost saw it performed. So how do you find? I mean, I feel like it's hard to almost. How do you know, for example, once it's written on the page, that it will work on screen? Because I mean, presumably, like you don't necessarily have that option of like writing something and then having it tested, filmed for you, and then they can like be like, no, actually, we should change this. You know what I mean? Like, how do you? I don't know. How do you? Well, I don't know. Does that question make sense?
No,
how do
it's
you
a
kind of get that
it's a
feedback for
very
yourself?
common thing, and it's such a funny thing because some things work on the page, and then other things work in real life, and then other things work on camera. Like there's almost 3 stages of it. When you get really good out here, I've got friends who've been in the business for 20 years or something, and they can now see, they can just read a script and be like, well, this is just, we don't need to do this. We can do this in a page. You know, a more trained eye can kind of see they call it chuffa, which is kind of stuff that you put in that kind of just doesn't really move the story along, doesn't really move the characters along, and can just be deleted entirely. The next step normally is that we do table reads, even if you're not going to film it. If you've just got a piece of material and you want to hear how it sounds and how the jokes are landing and how the story's moving, you get a bunch of friends together, you all read it out loud, and you can really start to hear like what works, what doesn't, especially when you're doing comedy, because jokes on a page and jokes in real life are totally different. And then what you're describing, I mean, that's very common. Like you end up filming it, and then suddenly you're in the editing bay for 6 days, and you're like, well, this scene was great and we really like it, but we don't need it. We don't have the time for it. Or, you know, this part here is kind of a weird beat, and we thought it's kind of a hangover. You know, it's kind of an ongoing process. And, you know, you really applaud you know, the original model of making television, you know, a weekly, you know, sitcom that airs at 8:30 on CBS. Those guys are, you know, they film them in a week, and there's a sit down audience, and it's just kind of one night where they film the whole thing, and they're writing really quickly, you know, like scripts are coming out all the time, and they're filming them, and then they're going to editing, and then it's just going to air. And I feel like there's so many times when I'm sure we used to do this on my old show, but like you'd watch the episode and be like, oh, that's just not totally perfect. It's not exactly what I want it to be yet, because we just kind of missed that thing. But you're working so fast, you kind of just gotta keep moving down the road. But yeah, no, what you're describing is very, very common, and it's never really over, the editing process. You just kind of have to put down your pencil at a certain point.
It's cool. Yeah, last week we had a filmmaker on, and we were talking a little bit again about TV, and I was just talking about how scary the idea of having to create something in such a short amount of time is, and like how you're always working under the gun. But I guess it also can force creativity, and I guess there's something exciting about that. You just make it work.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was on a show last year where, so the first show I was on, we did kind of the more standard model where we write, shoot, edit, air very quickly. But the one I was just on, it was this newer model for a Netflix show where all of the writing was to be done before filming, and all the scripts were to be completed before a single frame was shot. And it's such a tough way to work, because you kind of want that feedback of seeing it on the air, seeing what the audience is saying, seeing how people are reacting to the characters and the world that you're creating. Not that you want to course correct based on audience opinion, but you kind of get a better sense of what's working and what's not when you're putting it on the air. Just writing it kind of in a vacuum and being like, well, fingers crossed, we'll see what happens. You know, it's a little bit, it's a scarier way of making film, but yeah.
Huh. That's so funny, because Regine, remember we were talking last week. In fact, I said the exact almost opposite thing, because I was like, yeah, the idea of not knowing what it's going to be the next week. Like I would be so scared to be like, yes, hire me to make this show for you, and I don't know what the next 6 episodes will be. I'm going to make sure I write everything. Like I remember I even said it last week. I was like,
you're like, I don't know
when I was like small. Yeah, I said, I remember when I was small and I first found out about TV, I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to write the whole season first so that I know where the show is going. But it's so interesting to hear, because you're actually making a very good case for why the opposite actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Well, you're kind of doing both, where like you sit down and you talk about the whole season, and then you're like, okay, if we have 10 episodes and we're starting here and we want to get to this end point, how do we break that up? What's the story? What are the things that we really want? And you kind of loosely just kind of big picture it, and then you get more specific and get down to the episodes, and then you really start getting it. Like with the faster paced show I was on, it was a situation where we'd come up with like a list of ideas, and then we'd come up with like, okay, this block of episodes will be 20 episodes, so we want to have this storyline, and here are you just kind of do a bird's eye view of everything and get more specific as the weeks get closer. But then there is that point where you just have to start churning out scripts and be like, okay, well, we said episode 4 would be about skyscrapers. Okay, well, what are we going to do? You know, so it's kind of half knowing what you're doing and half having absolutely no idea.
It's cool. Sounds very exciting. Exciting.
It is. It's a very weird and strange industry, but when it's working and you're in it, it can be the greatest thing in the world.
Awesome. Hello, Master Gamer. What's going on? Welcome to the stream. L-Boy Plays. Hello. Make sure you guys hit that like button. Welcome. We're here with screenwriter Corinne Stikeman. Cookie Kid Oreos. Do people on stream get on? No, we don't usually bring viewers onto the stream. However, we do encourage questions. If you guys have questions for any of us or for our guest, feel free to ask them in the chat, and we will ask them to our guest. Oh, it's been a half hour. Okay, Regine, why don't we do the ad break, and then we're going to come back and talk more with Corinne Stikeman. Sounds
Has it already
good,
been
everybody?
half an hour?
Yeah,
Wow.
The conversation's flying, and I like it because it's been very, it's good. It's good when it goes by quick. Okay, so ads, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, today's episode of The Sit Down was brought to you by some very important people, right, Regine?
Yes, it was.
They are, of course, our fantastic advertisers. Regine,
Yes, Scott.
do you want to find out what your home is really worth?
Maybe.
Are you buying, selling, investing, or renting a home?
I might be.
Then Jennifer C., Realtor at Home Life Culture Link, is here to help. Call or text Jennifer today at 647-403-8887. Don't deal with just anyone. Speak to a professional. Jennifer C. at Home Life Culture Link. To see her current listings, visit homelifeculturelink.com. The Mortgage Godfather is here to give you advice with any mortgage needs you may have, and he will shop to find you the best mortgage. Nino Saimeka, mortgage agent. He'll give you an offer you can't refuse. Find out more at mortgagegodfather.ca or call 905-604-6955. And it was brought to you by Jewelry Forever. Conveniently located at CF Markville Shopping Center on 5000 Highway 7 East Markham, they do custom-made jewelry, repairs, and change watch batteries, all done on site. Jerry, over at Jewelry Forever, is an absolute artist. Do you have an idea for a custom piece of jewelry? He is the man to create it for you. And we have an amazing deal worked out with him, don't we, Regine?
Yes, you do. If you go into the store as of Monday, let them know that Scott and Regine sent you, and you'll get 15% off your entire purchase.
That's right, 15% off, 15%. Get on in there, tell them Scott and Regine sent you. Great deals, great deals. Find out more at jewelryforever.ca. And yeah, I just saw they just posted that they're getting ready to reopen, right? I saw a post on Instagram. So,
York region is opening up.
there you go. And it was brought to you by Deliciousness Treats.
Hot chocolate bombs, smash cakes, dipped Oreos, and more. There's actually a flash sale this weekend, so if you want to get your hands on 6 dipped Oreos and 2 hot chocolate bombs, it's only $15. So if you want some, order some, send us a message on Instagram at deliciousness_treats or Facebook at deliciousness treats.
That's right, everybody. Deliciousness Treats. Sweet treats in a mug for you and a friend.
There you go.
And my dad enjoyed his smash cake, by the way. I think you saw he posted it online. He enjoyed it.
I saw.
It's good. And if you would like to advertise on the show, it's very easy.
It's simple.
Right? Yes.
All you guys have to do is email us at radioshowad. That's radioshowad@gmail.com.
That's right. We do the show live every week. And the ads are also live, which means you can personalize them week to week. Do you have an event, a sale, something happening in a particular time or place? You let us know. We can let your new potential client base know in real time. Radio show ad, radioshowad@gmail.com. Let's start something new. I don't know why that could be the slogan for that portion.
Sure.
Anyways, we are back, ladies and gentlemen, with professional screenwriter Corinne Stikeman. Hello. I wanted to ask you, what's it like working, like what's the dynamic like in a writer's room? Because I mean, you've got a whole bunch, like you're basically a whole bunch of people who are all creative, all have ideas. So what is that like? Like, is it a struggle to get your ideas out there, to champion your own ideas, or what's it like? What is it like?
Oh boy. It's well, first of all, it depends. Every room is a little bit different. Rooms can range from it can be 5 people to the show I was on was 10 people and 2 different rooms. So that, it's, and then within the writers on the staff, there are different levels. So, you've got your staff writers and junior writers, your mid-level people, and then your executive producers. So every room is kind of run differently. Some people really adhere to the structure of the hierarchy, where if you're an executive producer, you can pretty much say anything you want. But if you're at the lower level, you're kind of just there pitching in when there's a lull, pitching jokes, smaller things, and not stepping on anybody's toes. Then there's a different way of going about it, where it's kind of the best idea wins and everybody in the room has got a voice. The tricky thing is figuring, like, every room has different rules that aren't really written down. It's not like you sit down and somebody's like, okay, here's how we're going to do this. You're going to say this and you can say that. You just kind of have to feel it out. The best advice I ever got was from my first boss, and he just said, don't say anything in the first couple weeks when you're on your first show, and only speak when you have something you think that is unbelievably amazing, because then you can do this thing where you don't say much, but then when you do speak, everybody kind of leans in and is like, oh, she's got one thing to say today, but it's going to be good. So that's kind of the best advice I ever got. But yeah, it's definitely hard. And you also kind of have to defer to the showrunner, who's either the creator of the show or the person who's been hired to run the room. And they're the person who sets the pace, sets the tone, sets the voice of all the characters. So you're kind of always thinking, not what is my thing that I want to pitch, what's my voice, what's my version of that joke. You're kind of thinking, okay, well, what would this showrunner like? How can I craft a joke that person likes and is in her voice or his voice? So it is kind of a struggle. And then there's always the thing where you come up with something that you think is really great and you pitch it and there's just dead silence. And you are like, should I do it again? Like, did they not get it? But you kind of have to just learn to put down, the weapon and step aside and be like, all right, well, that didn't work, and move on. I've been in situations where people just die on a hill, where they've got this stupid idea or a fine idea, but we've all moved off it, and they kind of just, I really liked that thing about the skyscrapers, and I think we should circle back. And that becomes a really, like, the point of the room is to move forward and to not get stuck, especially when it comes to comedy, when, comedy rooms are notoriously long days, sitting around pitching jokes, because the creation of a joke can take so long, and getting something to be very funny takes a very long time. So if you're already facing, 14-hour days at work, you don't want the guy who's like, but let's circle back to this thing I talked about at 9:30 this morning. And you're like, okay, I said guy, that's, it could be a woman, but normally a man. No. But yeah, so it's definitely, it's about reading the room, reading the writers. But then, once it's kind of like being in a dorm or being at sleepover camp, because you spend so much time with these people, you so quickly get a shorthand with them. So, making eye contact with people, having people who will be like, no, let's listen to what Corinne said. She said something earlier that I really liked. Always giving credit for an idea when you pitch it, being like, oh, to piggyback off of what, Jeremy said, we're going to do this thing. It's a lot of etiquette. It's a lot of unspoken rules, but, once the machine gets going, once you know the rules, once everybody knows each other, it goes really fast and smooth if you're on a good show.
Cool. Did you find, now that you've sort of done both, where you've created your own work from beginning to end, and you've worked in that type of environment, do you have a preference over one or the other? If somebody handed you and said, okay, you can go create whatever you want, would you sit down and write out your script, or would you build your own writer's room and work that way?
It's a combination probably of both. The selling and creating of a project it can be a very isolating experience. Because it's really just up to you and your idea, and then getting people around you jazzed about it, and getting people to be like, that's a cool idea. And that's not like every other thing that we've seen today, of which there are hundreds. So you got to kind of be this lone cheerleader for your thing and get people on board and get people attached. But then once it becomes a television show and it's sold, and that's when I love working with people, because story and comedy comes from, it's funny. I always think about the Beatles. This is not revolutionary. Everybody thinks about the Beatles. Everybody's thought about this. But you had Paul and you had John, and you had these two forces of nature coming at each other, and it's that friction, and it's the push and pull of two different headspaces that get you that magic. If it's just one person and one voice, it can be good, but you need somebody pushing against you to challenge you to think differently, and to take what you do really well and do it in a whole new way. And you just can't get that by yourself. And so always a room, but at the beginning, it's always alone. So,
yeah. And it's true that nothing the Beatles ever did solo-wise ever came close to what they created as a team. So there you go.
It's true. I think about that all the time with, I'm a big Taylor Swift fan, which we can just spend the rest of the show talking about her. But she is always at her, with Folklore and Evermore. I'm like, the reason I think it's so good is because she was working with Aaron Dessner, and it's just such a different force of nature than she's used to working with. Mm-hmm. And I think that conflict is what brought such beauty, I kind of felt like maybe she was doing too many things with Jack Antonoff, because it wasn't really, new things weren't coming, but I think that the product of Folklore and Evermore is because she worked with somebody new. Mm-hmm. And that's just a snippet of my Taylor Swift thoughts.
Interesting.
No, that's a good way to look at it, though. Yeah.
Yeah, and it does make sense. I think it, because you never know how, I guess, interactions with other people will impact you, right? So I guess, they'll help you see things in a different way, or at the very least point out something that maybe you didn't see,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm working with someone right now. We're trying to write this script for an animated project. And it's my idea, but I brought him on because he's a senior level writer, and he's so wonderful and so collaborative. And he's helping me see things in a way that I just, you kind of, your brain kind of has one track, and you just need somebody else to be like, yeah, but that track's open and that track's open. Mm-hmm. So you could use any of those. You don't need to use this one that you're kind of comfortable with. And it's just kind of pushing each other into these new kind of nooks and crannies of our minds. It's been really, really fun.
Awesome. Hey, Low-Key, what's up? Good morning, Scott, Regine, and Corinne. Glad to see you guys. Glad to see you, Low-Key. Hello. Yes, if you guys have anybody who has any questions at all, you can feel free to ask them, but we're going to keep rolling. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know what? Actually, I thought I did want to ask it. You mentioned Taylor Swift, and this is not really related, but sometimes I try to do segues, but I'm not good at them. But did any of you guys see the Free Britney documentary? Have you guys seen that?
Yes.
I haven't, but I've heard a lot about it.
I did.
What did you think? I mean, we should. I kind of want to.
thoughts on this too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's. I'd never even really heard of a conservatorship before, but now that I understand what they are, I understand why they exist, but it's difficult for me to see how it kind of applies here. But anyway, what are your thoughts there?
Well, it's interesting. First of all, I follow Britney Spears' life pretty closely because I was a young person during the mid 2000s. So it was part of the culture. Everybody, was following it. And I just, I'm an Instagram follower, which, if you follow Britney Spears' Instagram, it's a whole delightful journey into her world. So I kind of have been following, and I kind of followed the conservatorship case pretty closely just because I was interested in, but then seeing the documentary and seeing it all compressed into an hour and seeing the whole story from start to finish, it's really kind of it's just so heartbreaking, even for somebody familiar with it. But it seems to me that that the conservatorship is reserved normally for people who are elderly with dementia, Alzheimer's, people who can't take care of their estate, can't take care of themselves, need to have a third person come in and kind of handle their affairs. They put that in place for Britney when she had kind of a breakdown, in 2007, 2008, which at the time was temporary, but it's growing. I guess the documentary kind of proposes that her father, or at least her family, is kind of using it to their advantage, to kind of profit off of her and to keep her, keep themselves kind of on the payroll, when she's kind of of sound mind. But the thing that was really harrowing is just the idea that once you're kind of in a conservatorship, it's very hard to get out of it, because you have to prove that you have once you enter the conservatorship. I think I was reading this thing about how you basically have to sign a document saying, like, I'm signing my wills, like I'm signing myself over to this person. I'm signing away my rights in the situation. So you basically have to prove to a judge that you didn't mean that and things have changed. And it's a very hard thing to get out of.
Well, I think in the documentary that they have a lawyer who actually says she doesn't know of anybody who's ever gotten out of one.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
That's like, okay, well, that's kind of interesting. So
yeah, it just feels like they're manipulating this situation. It's just one of those like weird legal loopholes that they found. But yeah, it's a really upsetting, and just kind of watching the effect on her as a person. It's just, I don't even know.
You can
how
see
she
like
does it.
I haven't seen the documentary. Like, I would like to, but just because I know what was going on even before the documentary came out. So I feel like if I were to watch it, it would just be more upsetting than already knowing what's been going on behind the scenes. Like, just looking at her on Instagram compared to what she was like as a teenager or a young adult, it's crazy to see the difference in who she is now and who she was before. So I would love to see the documentary. I just don't know if I can take it.
Yeah, it's upsetting. I mean, you watch like the thing that really fascinated me about her was that she kind of had that huge public breakdown, and then within 8 or 9 months, she had a new album out, and she was put together, and she was at the MTV Movie Awards, and everything was kind of back to normal. And I was just thinking, like, this isn't okay. Like, this is way too fast.
There's something wrong here.
Yeah, and the spark was gone from that moment forward. It's just really upsetting. Yeah.
What I do appreciate, though, is that with this documentary came a lot of people apologizing to Britney Spears on how they viewed her and how they reacted to her breakdown. Because looking at how people deal with breakdowns and mental illness now compared to when it was back then, I'm glad to see that people are apologizing to her for that.
Yeah, I hope it moves the conversation forward. You see those interviews. I mean, I keep thinking about Taylor Swift, but I can't help it. She had to navigate. She kind of came of age right when Britney was at that really crucial moment in her career. And she had to navigate the same waters that she did. And she's done it in a way that gives her such complete control over herself and her work. And her whole thing has always been about being in control. And, I feel like she probably benefited from seeing the mistakes or seeing what was going on there. But it's such a horrible thing to have people sit down and like ask you questions about your mental health and like if you're crazy and if you cheated on your boyfriend. And like, let's just hope that those days are behind us, or at least we're moving in a different direction.
I vaguely remember when, like, I was never that much of a Britney Spears fan. I've never really followed her that closely.
Are you a Christina fan?
I mean, sure. I mean, I probably about the same level of fan of both. But I do remember, like, when those images of her, when she shaved her head and, like, hitting the car with the umbrella, when that first came out, I don't remember any coverage talking about it in the sense of, like, oh, she must need, like, it was all just kind of a big joke, like, for everybody. And even me, like, again, I don't know anything about it, but I just remember at the time, the only thing thinking of, oh, that's weird. Like, that's what's happening there. Like, it was all kind of just entertainment. You know what I mean? And I do think that it's definitely good that we seem to have a bit of a clearer lens now, at least a better way of looking at things. The weird part, though, is I get maybe there are ones we don't know about, but like, I can think of lots of celebrities who have had public breakdowns, but I don't know of any others that have permanently lost access to all of their decision making. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know, like how many people, got arrested or went to prison or all of this stuff, but, we're not looking 10 years later and they have like somebody taking care of everything for them. So,
yeah. I mean, I watched that Elton John movie. This is not topical, but I didn't know much about Elton John. And he OD'd and he was a complete mess. And he, came back and did The Lion King. There was nobody coming and being like, well, we need to take over his estate because he doesn't know what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he was literally on drugs.
Yep.
So,
I know.
Great movie.
Yeah, actually, I didn't see that one. I saw the Queen one. And then I guess that was like the Elton John one came kind of around in the same time, but I didn't.
Yeah, you're right. They were kind of the same. Yeah. It's definitely an airplane movie, as I like to say. It's the thing that's really interesting because you have nothing else to do.
Yep.
Which is kind of the pandemic.
That's true, actually. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I've actually, speaking of that, I've been watching so much, like a lot more TV, a lot more like Netflix series. So it's funny, I was going to mention this earlier, but listening to what our guests talked about last week and then hearing what you had to say this week about script writing and how TV shows are produced. Now when I watch TV or like a sitcom series, I'm like, I wonder what they went through to get to where they are.
Yeah. And it's funny when you think about, like, I was on, my friend has a podcast called Podcast Like It's 1999, and he does just kind of recaps movies and TV shows from 1999, which was kind of this weird anomaly year in entertainment where all this great stuff came out. And I did an episode about Sex and the City, and we were talking about that show and how the 5th season of the show was this weird truncated season of like 8 episodes. And it was because Sarah Jessica Parker was pregnant and they kind of had to scrap the whole season of the show. And the end of season 4 has Mr. Big leave and move to California. And then season 5 is kind of this weird 8 episode, like in between thing. And he was making the point of, like there was probably some really cool Mr. Big Carrie California thing that they were building towards, but then she got pregnant and they had to scrap it and come up with something else.
They could have said Mr. Big got her pregnant. Like they could have just kept
I
that.
know. It could have been, but they made the decision just to be like, we're just going to do this weird one-off season. He's going to be in California, I guess. We'll bring him back at some point.
Yeah.
But it's weird, like things like that all the time. And there's also this big writer's strike out here in 2008. That's legendary because all the writers went on strike for 3 months, I think, maybe 4 months. And television just shut down. So there's a lot of series that kind of just either ended or suffered because, Breaking Bad is the example everybody uses because it was kind of a show that was struggling. And it was, the first season was truncated because of the writer's strike. So it kind of ends where it wasn't supposed to. And then because of that that disruption with the writer's strike, Vince Gilligan, the creator, had this moment to rethink the dynamic of the show because they originally, I think, were going to kill Jesse Pinkman. And Vince Gilligan was like, no, there's something really interesting between him and Bryan Cranston, his character Walter White. And season 2 comes back and it's got this new energy and this new focus, and it kind of becomes the Breaking Bad that everybody becomes obsessed with. But without that break, the show might not have been exactly what it was. So.
Without the break, Breaking Bad would be
exactly.
bad.
There you go. Exactly.
There you go.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I listened to some of the podcast you were on. I was like, wow, I've never seen a single episode of Sex and the City, so I was like, I'm finding this interesting, but I don't really know anything that they're talking about. But
yeah, exactly.
They're remaking Sex and the City, apparently.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see what they do with that.
Like they're not like they're bringing back. They're not making a new show. They're like bringing back the old.
They're
cast,
bringing
like,
them all back.
Yeah,
not the whole
reboot.
cast.
Yeah.
Yeah, not the entire cast, but
yeah, Kim Cattrall.
It'll be interesting. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see Sex and the City without Samantha. But I mean,
oh, Samantha's not coming back.
No.
They have a Sarah Jessica Parker, I think, and Kim Cattrall have a long-standing feud, which I don't understand. Even though I have looked into it, I don't really understand why or how or when. But she's not coming back.
I would like to see a reboot of Friends. I watched the reboot of Gilmore Girls and I really got into it. So I want to know what would happen if Friends, like I know they're talking about like if they're coming back or not. Yeah. I'd like to see what would happen. Like I've watched Gilmore Girls, I've watched Fuller House. I like reboots.
Yeah, no, and they're gonna do a Frasier reboot, which I'm totally.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, love
Really?
Frasier.
Ooh.
Like, are these reboots? Is it going to be like full seasons, or is it kind of just like like a reunion episode, or like an actual season they're doing?
Fuller House was a full-on
series?
like 3 or 4 seasons.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a season. It's weird because I know they brought back Roseanne, and that turned into the Connors, which has been pretty successful. But then they also brought back Murphy Brown. That died. They tried to bring back Mad About You. That died. Doesn't always work, but yeah, Friends would be interesting to see them in their 40s, I guess, is what they are now.
Because if you look at it, Emma is 20 already.
Oh, God.
So, yeah, because I rewatched the entire thing during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, excuse me. If you watch when they were making the video for Emma on her 20th birthday, that was 2020.
Oh, God. They didn't mention the pandemic.
No. So it would be interesting to see, is Emma still around? Is like Ben's in his 30s. So it's like
they're going to be millennials, I guess. Yeah. That'd be interesting. Yeah.
It would be interesting to see if they can find that magic again. You know what's something that kind of weirds me out? This is totally not, well, it's kind of related, but there's a lot of ads like bus posters and stuff for Friends, and they always use this same picture, but there's something about the way they photoshopped all their faces that if you just look at the photo as a whole, it just looks like a thing of Friends. But then if you start to look at it's like the kind of thing where the longer you stare at it, the worse it looks. Like all of their faces are all deformed. I don't know what I don't know if it's like photoshopping wasn't what it was 20 years ago or whatever. And it's the same picture. I don't know. Anyway, that's kind of an
Well, it's because Friends is now on excuse me, Friends is now on Crave, right? So that's why you're seeing so much of them.
That's a horrible Photoshop job, is what that sounds like.
Yes, they're all of their faces, like every single one is just look. Each one is if you see the bus poster. Anybody who's watching this, if you see the bus poster, go look at it and then just look at their faces one at a time.
You're not supposed to be outside.
Well, you can be outside. You can be outside. It's like you don't go inside places, really, right? You can go outside for walks.
You guys are on a full lockdown right now?
Oh yeah. Toronto
is, yeah.
It's in fact, is it the whole province of Ontario?
So we were all on a stay-at-home order, and then now that cases are less in some regions, they're in different color zones. So Toronto and Peel were stuck in stay-at-home orders until March 8th.
Okay.
Yeah. And they just extended it again.
Do you still miss the
snow? Yes.
Yeah, it's
that stinks.
Yeah, we're not allowed to go. Basically, the rule is you're allowed to go out for shopping, work.
Essential shopping,
yeah. And the thing that changed when they put in this order was, so before that, they told us what they were encouraging us to do and what the rules were, but there was no enforcement of any kind, with the exception of if you had a house party, the cops were going to shut it down. But otherwise, they weren't really checking whatever anybody was doing. But now has happened a few times this past month is some people have been getting fined. Like one woman got fined because she dropped her kids off at her parents' place. And that's not allowed because they're not in the same household. Wow. So she actually got, I don't know how they caught her. I don't know if they just asked her, pulled her over, asked her where she's going.
Yeah, seriously. I don't know. It's so hard to enforce this stuff, but wow.
Yeah. But they
That's
have.
Always good. I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
It was crazy here because we were surging upon surging upon surging. And then they're like, yeah, but you have to stay home, but the malls are open, but don't go anywhere. But there's a sale at Levi's, so, and because it's warm, people are all kind of going out and doing their things. It's just this mixed messaging that I think people got really frustrated with. And I think my sister, who's, scientifically minded, she broke it down for me and she's like, here's why it's okay to do all this stuff. And I was like, I understand that, but I'm a lay person who doesn't get science, and hearing that the mall's open, but I can't go anywhere, that doesn't make sense to me. So I need somebody to come out and explain it to me and tell me why we're doing it this way. Because people just started breaking the rules because they were like, nothing matters anymore.
Yeah, I have family in California and they seem to be living life as if nothing happened.
Yeah, some people, not me, but some people are. And they're like, yeah, we're just going to go over to so-and-so's house. It's like, you are? You really think it's okay?
Yeah.
I've
You
seen
see it all
anybody
over
here.
social media. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's ugh.
Yeah, it's
Crazy.
my biggest problem with a lot of this is the way governments have been managing it. Because it's never been like a real. It's like every rule has like 800 exceptions and loopholes, and then you can do this and you can find a way around it, and it's confusing. And yes, you can do this, but you can't do this. I don't know. I mean, the frustrating thing for me is like, so I've been doing a lot of live streaming, right? And there are people from all over the world who come in. And like, there's one guy in Australia, right? And I was telling him, oh yeah, we got a lockdown. We're at like 3,000 cases a day or something. And he goes, wow, like we haven't had any cases here for like 4 weeks, I'm like, what? And it's just because they actually
It's
locked
so
down.
different.
And then he
Yeah.
told me like they ended up with, they got 5 cases. So then they locked down again. And then
Yeah.
the cases went away, and it's just like, wow, they just
Yep.
did what they had to do, and it's done. And here
Yeah.
we are,
Here
kind of
it's
just
like
we're
we're
just-
not taking, like they say they're
Yeah.
taking it seriously, but rather than canceling or locking down on letting people in from different countries with variants, they lock down travel from Mexico because it's south.
Right.
I'm like, what? That doesn't make
any
sense.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Yep. It's
Sometime.
Yeah, one day we'll get out of this. I'm gonna
Yeah.
when the vaccine comes around, I'll just get that, and then that'll be that, I guess.
Yeah,
But that's
it's
isn't the
just
crazy
like-
thing. Like, I
Mhm.
find that the US, you guys are getting vaccinated so
Yeah.
much faster than anywhere else.
Yeah, it's
Definitely
really
faster than here.
Yeah, a lot. My boyfriend's mom is fully vaccinated. A lot of my friends' parents have already been vaccinated. My parents still don't even know when they're gonna even be available. Maybe April. My parents are saying.
Yeah.
My sister got fully vaccinated because she's an essential worker. So it's definitely moving, and it feels like there's light at the end of the tunnel. But it still also feels like that tunnel is much longer than you think, and the light might be much further away than you thought.
It's just a really
kinda
bright
seems like
light.
Yeah.
It seems like it gets longer. Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because I know they announced a while ago, like I think the convention center, the Metro Toronto Convention Center, was going to be a giant vaccination center, and then it closed
And then
because they
shut it
ran out.
down.
So,
Oh, gosh.
but I know that I think they just had some problems with, I don't know, supply. Anyways, it's coming. For now, I'm just staying home, staying away from people. Hey Zero, sorry I'm late. Hey, welcome to the show. How are you? DR Have Stupid says, Scott, you look too comfortable. You mean like my nice sweater? You want me to be uncomfortable? DR Have Stupid? Well, anyway, welcome. Oh, hey Mio-chan. Hey, just visiting. Hello, Mio-chan. Welcome. Once again, we're here, everybody, with professional screenwriter Corinne Stikeman. Hey, did you guys see the new Cruella trailer? Have you guys seen it?
I've seen snippets.
I did see it.
It's what do you guys think?
Here's the thing. I rewatched 101 Dalmatians, the OG cartoon.
Okay.
Beginning sometime in the pandemic, we're watching a lot of Disney. That's all I can
Yeah.
say. The thing that stuck out so much in that rewatch is that the Cruella character is actually very more interesting than what I remember from when I was a kid. She's kind of this like, she's apparently like she's from this wealthy family that has since fallen on hard times. She lives in this old dilapidated mansion outside of London by herself. She's skin and bones, and she's just trying to like grasp onto the last pieces of being a wealthy person. So the coat is her trying, like, she doesn't have any money, so she wants this coat because it's a sign of class and power and wealth. That's cool. That's creepy. I don't think I need to see, I think that makes her a great villain. I don't know that I need to see somebody whose goal is to make dogs into coats. You know? I don't think that's a sympathetic character. But what do you guys think?
Now that you put it that way.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think I need to rewatch it as the cartoon, because the
Same.
thing is,
Now that you said that.
It's really
because my issue is my memory of Cruella was that she's not a super villain, right? Like she was
basically dogs.
yeah, like it's the thing. Like, so, like, again, I like that now. A lot of her backstory stuff, like, I didn't, again, as a kid watching it, I probably didn't notice a lot of that stuff about her. She was just kind of like she was just a mean lady, right?
She's just scary. Yeah.
But from what I can remember, like, she just stole some puppies from her friend, and then did she buy the other 90? Isn't there a line that says the other 90 are bought and paid for? So she purchased 90 puppies.
Yeah, she
stole
took
like
15 or something. Yeah.
Yeah, stole the other ones, and she just wants to make a coat, and that was enough. And it was an adventure. But thing is, it was an adventure, and she's a villain to the dogs because they're dogs, and she's, you know what I mean?
So is she really a villain?
Well, I mean, most people aren't happy with the idea of like skinning.
I think
Animal
it makes her a perfect villain for children too, because children love their dogs, and knowing that somebody wants to comfort their dogs, it's a very easy thing to grasp. And as an adult watching it, you're like, this makes sense because that's cruel and stupid. But you also get that element of like, she's a very sad and broken person. But I just don't think you can turn wearing dogs into something that people are like, that's
like
dark and interesting.
This week, I'm going to watch it.
You should. It's really,
trailer?
really good. It's also just really funny.
Not the trailer, Scott.
Oh, the movie.
The
The original.
Just because, like, when I was growing up, like, my parents were telling me this even yesterday. Like, I would watch 101 Dalmatians, but the live-action one.
Oh, the one with Glenn Close.
But mind you, I was maybe 6 or 7, so I don't really remember it.
Okay.
So I think I will have to go and watch the original cartoon and then watch a live action one just to compare.
You should, yeah.
Yeah. See, that's the other thing. See, I don't think I've seen the Glenn Close one. And I remember at the time it was super popular, and I remember she got like so many accolades for like bringing something. So I'm wondering if maybe this new trailer is drawing more from that live action inspiration.
Yeah, that's
I don't remember.
Because like I know a lot of people, I don't know if it's criticism or just observation, but a lot of people are thinking that Disney is kind of trying to cash in on some of that the popularity of like Joker and like kind of, you know, Harley Quinn type characters, and I'm like, I just don't know if Cruella was like that. Like when you watch the trailer, it genuinely feels like she's gonna be taking on Batman. Like that's. So I mean, maybe it'll be really good. I don't know, but
no, I think you're right. And you think about like they did Maleficent, which makes sense.
I liked Maleficent.
Yeah, and like that's a very like brooding, like, you know, quiet. She doesn't do a lot in Sleeping Beauty aside from, you know, the general horrible stuff of kidnapping the prince. But like you don't know her. This person is just kind of a sad, desperate person with a very cruel agenda.
Yeah. How do you make that a movie?
And I love Emma Stone. I love the way it looks. It looks like it was, you know, it looks like $1 million. I just don't know. I think it's a bit of a reach. And I was trying to think of like another villain that you'd really want to peel back a layer of, at least a female villain. Because I like the idea of like these old
witch.
Like these old stories where the woman was the woman was the villain because she's just mean, and women are mean
like
and naggy.
Snow White.
Yeah, like her. And Maleficent, like I like the idea of turning that on its head and being like, this is like a more well-rounded character, and women can be mean, but they can also be great, whatever. That's cool.
There's a reason to why they're mean.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I like that. I don't know about this. I
well,
love
because
animals, so it cannot be the right
there's
person
that.
to ask.
Yeah, well, the thing is, like with Maleficent, I even feel I actually didn't see Maleficent, but the idea that there
What's
would be
wrong
enough
with
there.
you?
I actually there for a long time I didn't. Pre-pandemic, I wasn't watching a lot of Disney stuff, with the exception of, I guess, Star Wars. But so I've been getting caught up actually through the pandemic. But at least for me, it makes sense to make a story about Maleficent because she's got, like,
she has a story.
You can make a movie about anything. I actually think she might be a very interesting person, Cruella. It's interesting that this trailer looks very similar to the Joker and Suicide Squad type trailers. So it's like they're marketing her as like
even
this
with her
super
hair.
Yeah, like she's a super villain genius. And but I don't think that was ever who she was. Like Maleficent, at least she's got power. She's like you've got the idea that like, wow, she's, you know, ruling a kingdom, and like it makes sense to have this epic trailer. I mean, it'd be interesting. I mean, like maybe the Cruella of like the cartoon, like you feel like maybe you could make like a psychological drama thriller about her, you know, or like a sad tragedy about just a woman living. But like that's not what this movie looks like to me.
Yeah,
I'm just very.
Yeah, I want to see that version though, Scott. That's what I'll pay money to see that.
Yeah, like a small like just about a sad woman living at her house, you know.
Yeah,
But-
and maybe
Her
the coat's
abandoned
already
mansion.
been made, so you see the coat, you're like, ooh, that's not good, but we know what it
Yeah.
means,
Mm-hmm.
and then we move past that.
And
Yeah.
then find out where it came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like how her life changed after she made that coat.
Yeah, it's
Ooh.
almost
Like, it sounds like it's-
it really depends. My worry is that the reason that we saw that movie is being made and the trailer, the reason it exists is because somebody there went, Joker's so big right now. Okay, we what can be ours? Okay, who can we grab? Oh, let's grab this one. You know, we own this property. And if that's the motivation, that worries me.
That
But-
is
Mm-hmm.
probably 100% exactly what happened. And somebody else was like, let's make it a woman because it's 2021.
Yeah.
Yep.
End
So-
of conversation.
Yeah. So the hope then is that maybe somebody actually had a really great idea and then pitched it. That could be it. Or there's also the other possibility that even if it does come from a strictly like, well, what do we got that we can throw out there that makes money? But there is also the possibility that if they get the right person on the job, that it could still end up as a really good movie. But again, we're just going to have to wait and see. But
Be interesting.
Stay tuned.
Mhm.
stay tuned, people. Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Oh, did you guys hear about this Mars landing that just happened this week?
Scott, do you have a list of things that you want to talk about?
I do. I wrote stuff down. I wrote stuff down because, I wanted to do some. But did you guys hear anything about it? The Perseverance lander.
I saw
Heard
the
of
footage.
it? Yeah.
Here's a question.
Mm.
Didn't we already go to Mars?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
Okay, so explain it to me like I'm 5.
Yeah. So we've been there a few times actually. In fact, that's the cool thing because I remember like when I was a kid, the first time they landed got a rover on Mars. I remember I saw it on like Time magazine. I was at my uncle's house, and I was so like taken with the idea. Like I remember there was a small period of time as a kid I was like really obsessed with like, whoa, there's like a little skateboard thing rolling around on Mars, right? But yeah, so basically what happened was the one that we sent before this was the one that found evidence of water on Mars,
Mm.
right? But now its batteries or whatever, I'm not even sure exactly. It doesn't move anymore. It's died.
Okay.
But it found the evidence of water. So
Right.
the one that they've just sent now is like much larger, and now it's going to be. They've dropped it at an area where there's like, where they know there was a lake and like a river going there. It's all dry now, but that's where it was, and they're specifically going to now be looking for evidence of life, or like so
Oh.
ancient life. Yeah,
This is cool.
Interesting.
yeah.
Alright,
So it's
thanks
like.
for breaking it down.
Yeah, and so for like I got pretty excited again. It's kind of that same like 12-year-old me feeling when I started watching the coverage, but it's like so the last one was it had a drill on it, right? And it would grind up the soil, and they were looking for like minerals and stuff. But this new one has a
Okay.
more advanced drill that is actually going to be making cores. So it's not going to grind up the dirt. It's going to make it into like a little chalk-shaped thing. That way they can read the layers and actually see the age and stuff. And
Oh, wow. Okay.
Mm.
and it's also going to be, I believe this one is also going to be having they have these containers on it that are like, they've been the cleanest things we've ever sent into space because they're very concerned about, they don't want Earth contaminants to be on Mars. But the plan for these things is they're going to collect samples that they're planning for eventually will be brought back to Earth by a future mission.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah, 'cause-
cool.
Because we've never brought anything back.
Science.
And
Okay.
what's the other cool thing about it? Oh yeah, the other cool thing is it has a helicopter attached to it too. So it's going to drop a little helicopter drone, and they're actually going to be able to send this helicopter like fly around Mars and go
That's
into areas that they
crazy.
couldn't be able to. Yes.
That's
So-
wild.
So it's
Whew.
it's cool science fiction-y type stuff. Who knows what we're gonna
Yeah.
find? But I don't know.
Stay
Maybe-
tuned.
Yeah.
Stay tuned, everybody.
Scott, do you watch Rick and Morty? I feel like this is something we've either talked about
I
or
have.
you should.
So yes, I've seen. In fact, weirdly, about you mentioned airplane stuff. I watched Rick and Morty for the first time on an airplane a few years ago because it was one of those shows where I'm like, yeah, I got to get around to watching it. And there's so much of TV now that it's like there's like a bunch of shows that I want to watch that never have, and Rick and Morty was one of them. and one day I was on a plane and I had a long flight and I watched a whole bunch of episodes of Rick and Morty, but it was only one specific season. So I liked everything I watched, but I haven't watched it since.
Okay,
But
because
it's
just about in terms of space and exploration, the supposition that there's many different versions of the world and that we're all just kind of, bebopping around, but there's thousands of other, it's just, anyway, it's a plug for Rick and Morty. I have nothing to gain from it. I just think it's a great show and that you would enjoy it specifically.
yeah. I feel like it is right up my alley. Cause like I enjoy it. I like the humor and like how it's so, I love how matter of factly they talk about just insane things. It's just very, it's just the tone is, I don't know. I'm not describing it right, but you've seen it. I've seen it. Yeah,
it's kind of a dark show about this mad scientist who believes basically that life is meaningless and nothing matters, and you should just go off and kind of have fun while you're here, because he's the smartest man in the universe, and he's traveled to galaxies. He can get into different, time continuums or whatever. But that's kind of a really dark premise for a funny comedy show, because everything that happens, there's always this kind of sad, sour note of like, well, nothing matters. And, I don't know. I love comedy that's both really depressing and extremely funny. So it's perfect for me.
Nice.
Yeah, have you seen it, Regine? Rick and Morty? Have you ever watched it?
Nope.
It's some.
I know my brother watches it.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's good. It's worth checking out. Corinne, what? I think we're gonna wrap up pretty soon, but I do want to find out like what's next for you? What are your plans for?
Pandemic wise, or
I guess either one. That's the thing. I guess
Oh.
pandemic wise puts everything, but career wise, whichever. Yeah. I know you probably can't talk
I'm,
specifics about like shows or anything, but just
Yeah.
Stuff
No,
like
I mean, I'm working on this animated thing that's sad and funny, which is the thing that I'm most excited about. And I have a couple other things that are in the earlier stages. One's a movie based on a book by a Canadian book, hopefully.
Ooh.
And another TV show idea, but that's barely even started. But just trying to get one of my own projects off the ground is really what I'm focusing on now. And just living and working, being at home all the time until I can get on a plane and come back to Toronto and actually see my family for the first time in over a year.
Wow.
Yeah. In fact, I didn't even really get to ask about it, but like how has, I know like in Toronto, I know the industry, we stopped for a while with the pandemic, but now things have generally gotten back up running again. How has it been? How has the pandemic hit you work-wise?
It's been weird because there's been, I feel like there's a lot of backlog. I mean, I could be wrong about this, but my feeling is that because production had to shut down at the beginning, and then again, we shut down for an extended period of time when the surges were going on in January, production stopped, meaning development stopped, meaning new people coming in the door. Like everything kind of just is very slow. Another thing that we're seeing is that writers' rooms, because they're all on Zoom now, that they're a little bit smaller because Zoom is not the medium you want. I've also seen more like people are kind of just hiring one or two people as opposed to a room full of people, maybe more people that they're better friends with, because Zoom is not the medium you really want when you're making television. So yeah, everything's kind of slowed down. I mean, we're very lucky because television has become the thing that everybody's so reliant on. So making it no matter what has been a priority. There's also been a big shift into animation because it's the kind of thing you can create and produce without having to be on a soundstage. It can all be done remotely. So that there is a huge surge of animation stuff going on, especially this summer. I happened to be working on this animation thing with with another writer that we're going to be taking out, in a few weeks. So we just kind of lucked into this wave of being at the right place at the right time. So yeah, it was, it's ongoing, but we're lucky in a lot of ways, but it has been slower.
And did you find making adjustments, like, do you find that it impacted you creatively wise? Like, did it shift your you found more time at home? Did you find you had to make adjustments to your routine and stuff?
I feel like there's people who are like, the pandemic was great. I sat down and wrote 3 movies and 2 TV shows, and I'm going out with this new thing. I'm the person who was like, I just my brain stopped working for a couple of months. And I realized it's like, I need to be out in the world listening to people talk, hearing new conversations, hearing snippets of things, and getting voices in my head, because it's just me. And it's like, we're not that interesting after a year of listening to ourselves. You need the stimulus of the world and real life and conversations and going places. Like, I always get my best ideas when I'm on vacation and I'm not thinking about anything, and suddenly I'm like, oh, that's a cool idea. I've never come up with an idea like for a show just sitting in my apartment, though I guess I did last year. But it's like, it's just, you've had to really find new ways to stimulate yourself and get outside the box and, you know, get into the mood to write. Because normally I'd go to a coffee shop, I go to an office, and sit down. But like, just sitting here day in, day out, you know, my bed is right there. This is my desk. Like, this is my my whole world. It's very challenging, but you know, it helps talking to other writers, and it helps listening to music. Actually, you know, that's been the real thing that has got me like on the right page.
Yeah, it's one thing I learned about myself is that I seem to work better when I have a lot of things going on, because I feel like the idea that there's not that much time to get something done forces me to get a lot of things done. And I've learned that when I have lots of time, I can just sort of not do anything. It's been not good. I don't like it about myself, but it's something that I've had to
it's a
cope
real
with.
thing. Yeah, and even just like, I would have on days when I wasn't in a writer's room, I'd be home working, but then I'd go to the gym, I'd have a class I'd like to hit, I'd have brunch, I'd have lunch, I'd have dinners, I'd have drinks, you know, so you have an end point to the day. Now it's just like, you can be working all day. So you're always kind of like, I should be working, or you're like, oh, I guess I should be taking a break. It's very unclear.
Yeah, it's been a weird adjustment. We'll get through it, people, like we said. We don't know how when that light is coming at the end of this tunnel. But one day, it's definitely there. It's definitely there. It's either a very, very bright light that's far, or it's a close light that's
very
dim.
not as
it's a pinhole that's right here, or it's a bright light that's far away.
Yes. We'll find out. But one thing we do know is we've come to the end of this episode. I was trying to wrap it up, you know, with that.
Good
Beautiful.
segue.
Loved it.
Best segue ever.
So before we say goodbye, Corinne, where can people find you if they want to follow you on, I guess, social media or that stuff?
I am on Instagram at Coco Stikeman and Twitter at Coco Stikeman. Trying to get better at Twitter, so if you want to see some poorly formed jokes, you just head right on over. And Instagram is mostly my cat, but you know what? He's a good cat, so.
It's good cat, people. Regine, where can people find you?
You guys can find me on YouTube on Mondays and Wednesdays for Pageant Sit Down, so make sure you tune in this week at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as well on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter at It's Regine Alaina. And if you'd like to follow my pageant journey, you can still do so by following me at Ms. MS Galaxy Canada on Instagram and Facebook. Where can they find you, Scott?
You can find me right here where you're watching this very video. YouTube.com/ScottDionBrown. Twitch.tv/ScottDionBrown and DLive.tv/ScottDionBrown. All three of them have the same stuff, except YouTube is a bit better because it also has my, you know, edited and properly made videos. YouTube is the best place. You can also follow me here on Twitter and Instagram at ScottDionBrown, but they're really just satellites for my YouTube channel. YouTube is the best place. And make sure you hit the like button on this video, guys, if you've enjoyed it. And even if you haven't, just hit the like button anyway, you know. And hit that subscribe button. And guys, you could have gone to any website in the whole world, but you chose to share your Sunday morning on the West Coast, Sunday afternoon on the East. And you chose to be here with us, and for that we're very, very grateful. Thank you guys for being here. Corinne, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a pleasure.
It was fun. It was a nice chat.
It was. Learned a lot.
Yeah. I liked hearing about some of the dynamics of screenwriting. It's something that I've always been interested in hearing about, because it's something I know. Most of my writing has all been, like, again, kind of on my own, and there's something very interesting to me about that whole environment that I never knew anything about. So thank
It's
you.
mysterious and weird. Of course.
Yes. All right, everybody. We'll see you all next time. I'll be streaming some Brawlhalla in a 1v1 tournament tomorrow night. And we'll be back again next week with the sit down. And of course, again, also make sure you tune into Regine's episodes of the Pageant Sit Down Mondays and Wednesdays. Tomorrow is the next episode. So there you go, everybody. We'll see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.